Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases. Hello, everyone. Glad you're able to join us tonight. If you're new to the channel, I want to welcome you and thank you for being here tonight. And as you participate in chat and everything, respect families, respect mods, and each other. We'll have a presentation after which, or during the presentation, Mrs. Steve over here will be making a note of all the questions and things, and I will get them all answered as much as possible at the end of the presentation. So anyway, tonight, if you'll pull it up in here, we're going to be, of course, talking about the homicides of Madison, Kaylee, Ethan, and Xana that happened in Moscow, Idaho. And if you have any information on this case, absolutely make sure that law enforcement is aware of that information. For as a fact, as the court system proceeds with the trial of Kohberger for justice to be found, and we absolutely have to make sure that all the information is out there. And if the only way we can do that is make sure everyone's aware to get that information to them. All right. Tonight, we're going to be discussing alibis and the what it means and why are we in this position now, basically 8 months later, and after in the process of the court hearings and the defense attorney saying we need more time to establish an alibi. And I'm sure, attorneys have certain rules, and I in no means understand everything of how these attorneys approach their strategies of how they're going to represent their client. I've seen a lot of attorneys in my career, you know, absolutely throw everything they can at the wall, and what sticks is what they're going to go with. But I can understand in this specific case of why the defense may need some more time. We're looking at a case that there is probably the most data, most information. I mean, from my understanding, we're looking at over 50 terabytes of information that has been released in discovery. And in the world of these Google machines and the internet, that means a lot, more than probably any trial that I've ever heard of. And for people that want to go out there and check and find out the largest trial out there, I'm sure there's some um, that are bigger, but not that I'm aware of, because this is absolutely amazing how law enforcement approached this case and all the ways that they track this vehicle and look at all the digital and the social media platforms and everything. So this case is huge, and I can see that the defense attorneys will be overwhelmed with all the data. But when you look at alibi and they want more time for the alibi on that, it's kind of strange that they're using this approach, in my opinion, that they're basing it that we need to look at the alibis for the fact that they have a client that was awake, mobile. He knows where he was every moment during that date and time. And so all the supporting evidence, you would expect that if we look at an alibi, and what an alibi is, it's a claim that a piece of evidence that one was elsewhere when an act, especially a criminal one, is alleged to have taken place. And so he knows when this alleged crime occurred. Everyone knows. We have such a narrow window of when the crime was committed, from the surviving witnesses and from the processing of the crime scene, phone data of when people were inside the house operating some of their devices. So the window of opportunity, we know when this occurred. It's not like that he has to go back and build an alibi that's over a 24-hour period. We're looking at less than a quarter of an hour, and he knows where he was at during that quarter of an hour. And so, and law enforcement's taken everything they could and um, and have tried to place him there. But he took certain measures by, of course, he's going to say it's just a coincidence that his devices were turned off during this critical time frame. And what other evidence will law enforcement have against him? And we'll be getting into that a little bit later also. But um, part of the problem of him, if he's saying that I have an alibi, well, if he left his devices on during that critical time, it would show exactly where he was at, and he would have supporting digital evidence of, yes, I was in the other areas. But like I said, he knows where he's at, and we live in a time of where we have all the security cameras out there. They're on everything from uh, stop lights to vehicles to home ring security systems, service stations, banks. And if he was in any of these areas, they could focus on it and do a canvas, much like what he did, or what law enforcement did to pursue the individual that committed these crimes. And then, but the verb part of an alibi is that you offer an excuse or defense for someone by providing an account of their whereabouts at the time of an alleged act. And once again, we're down to just a 15-minute window. And I would dare say that almost all of us, if we was in these similar circumstances, that we're caught up in a investigation, that the amount of detail that law enforcement went into this, and the amount of evidence that was brought, that the alibi scenario of what the defense is doing, I understand that they're just trying to do their job. But like I said, we're only talking about a 15 to 20-minute window. It's not like he's trying to do over a 24-hour. And even if it was a 24-hour thing, you still were looking at approximately 8 months afterwards. And why do we need more time? Now, would the courts grant it? I would expect probably so. Do I think it would be, like I said, I do not want anything to stand in the way of justice being found for these victims. And the investigation went rather quickly. The arrest came rather quickly. And so we have time, and we most certainly do not want anything to be mishandled by the courts that would allow any type of appeal process to occur, that he wasn't given enough time due to the the amount and the load of data that law enforcement gathered on this case. And it's almost sometimes during discovery, you'll often see where people just do a massive dump to the opposing side of data. And it appears that this has been a massive dump because, like I said, we're talking about a lot of information covering everything, I would imagine, from the financials to the victimologies to any of the criminal history of the offender, multiple search warrants, subpoenas of records. All of that's going to be in these terabytes of information. And but the defense, they have a key witness. They have Kohberger, and he knows exactly the answers to anything they can ask. And hopefully we'll get to the bottom of it relatively quickly. But anyway, in this motion that was filed a few days ago, part of the argument was that they have not had enough sufficient time to fully review the evidence provided by the prosecution. And like I said, I have no idea. It would take several computers to have that much terabyte because most of the computers are generally what, 1 terabyte or something nowadays.
If they're a terabyte.
If they're a terabyte, so you're looking at, if you was looking at your laptop and you had 1 terabyte of available data, you're looking at 50 computers. And that's huge, and that's as simple as I can explain it. Now I'm sure there's people out there that know these machines a lot better than I, and can explain exactly how many words, pictures, statements, maps that is. I have no idea, but as she says, it includes thousands of pages of discovery, thousands of photographs, and hundreds of hours of recording. And so, but once again, she has a client that knows everything about where he was during a very limited, specific time, that can answer these questions and bring it to a head extremely quickly. And we'll see where it goes with that. But there's certain things that occur in these trials about the best defense in criminal cases. And then, you know, I don't always agree with some of the research that I find, and this is one thing that uh, alibis are one of the most effective criminal defense strategies, no matter the case type. Um, but it depends on who's given that alibi. Is it someone that has a ulterior motive that's given it? Is it a family member? It depends. We don't have that we're aware of with Kohberger, unless at some point, if he says, "Oh, I was on a live stream with my sister or my father in Pennsylvania, and I had to turn off all my devices, but I'm on a live stream, or I'm in some type of communications with them on a different device." Um, and you would have to have something that is extremely well documented for that to become an effective alibi. Alibis occur all the time, but um, they have I seen them work. It's a hard thing, and juries, while they may accept an alibi, it's going to have to be from someone outside his ring of friends, outside his circle, and um, that would step up to the plate and say, "Oh yes, I was a cashier at a store at such and such location, and here's a video." Of course, it's pixelated; you can't really tell it's him, but that's him. And They would have to come to court and have to testify. And the other thing about an alibi, if he had a rock solid alibi, we wouldn't be in this position today. That law enforcement wouldn't even, that, oh, we have all this evidence against him. We even have DNA against him. But even that DNA can be explained if he has a rock solid alibi and he says, "Oh, I've been in that house multiple times. That was a knife that during one of our uh, conversations, they wanted a weapon to protect themselves. I provided it." Um, and but I have a rock solid alibi supported by other evidence. Um, and If that was the case, we wouldn't be here today. And they wouldn't be searching or needing more time. They would just honestly say, "Okay, let's go to trial. Um, we have this. I'm filing that we have an alibi," because some states do require that if you're going to use certain types of defenses, that you have to state what type of defense that you're going to present, and let the state uh, look into it and create whatever opposing arguments they may have. But and I don't know exactly how Idaho approaches that. Um, but We don't have anything that says that he was somewhere else, absolutely positively, without a doubt. He was off the grid, turned the device off prior to, didn't turn the device back on until after the crime was committed. Once again, the only time that we need an alibi, even if we extended out to the full, I think his device was turned off just over an hour or so, that still in his life, he knows where he was at exactly during that hour plus that his devices were turned off. And it's a simple process. We're not talking about a 24-hour period. He got out of bed, he was awake, he was active, he knew where he drove, He knew what stores he stopped at, what intersections, what route he took. And we also have video of a similar vehicle, such as his, that was seen in the area. And which is, you know, that can be argued. But uh, uh, if he had his left his device on, we may not be in this position. But we'll see where the defense goes with that. And alibis are exactly this. They're hard evidence, and we should put the emphasis that they are hard evidence, that you were somewhere else. You was not located at this residence on November the 13th at 1122 King Road, Moscow, Idaho, that you were somewhere else. And you have to have that hard evidence supporting it. And there's a lot of things that could be hard evidence. Say that you have to have something that's tangible. Say that in his possession, he has a store receipt that during that hour and something plus that he was off grid, his devices were shut down. No one knew knows where he was at. And he has in his possession of a store receipt of that he was shopping somewhere else. And that distance is absolutely uh, uh, geo located in a position that it would not allow him time to be in two places or within the travel time to have committed these crimes. And does he have that store receipt? But that'd be one type of an alibi that he would be able to present. And it can be anything from a store receipt to a credit card transaction that is date and time stamped, and where it would be clear evidence that no, during that window of opportunity when I was off the air, my devices were closed down. This is where I'm at. I'm 20 miles away. And there's no way that I could have been able to be within that even smaller window of opportunity. Or, it could be simply that I was 5 miles away because, like I said, we're only looking at a very limited window of when the crime actually committed. And then you have to look at the video surveillance. The same platforms that law enforcement used to pursue him and identify a suspicious vehicle that was in the um, area of the residence at the exact time that the crime was committed. He could use that type of evidence that he was actually somewhere else. And is that what does he hope that looking through all that data and all that information that there is video coverage of another similar vehicle as his at a location? And I would expect more than likely that's exactly what he wants to do, is that he wants to look at all the other cameras and that were collected and throughout probably a lot more time frame in other areas of the city, that they will be probably looking for similar type vehicles to the type that was used to be in the area that law enforcement says that this is Kohberger's vehicle. And will they find some? I would expect that they're going to find a lot of white vehicles that are close to that. And will they be able to effectively present that type of information to try to push that narrative? I would expect that would occur. And but that's what the defense has to do. And that's probably why they're going to be looking at all this stuff. But then we have the social media evidence. And what is that? And we'll be looking at the social media evidence that possibly that did he have a presence somewhere, or was he communicating with someone else on another device that no one knows of? There's that possibility. Like I said, the GPS can track your location. This data can be accessed by so many different type of from telecom providers on. And if he had checked in somewhere on social media and proven that he wasn't at the crime scene, a lot of people will do that. They'll go out and eat, and I've done it myself. when I go out eat at certain restaurants, take a picture of what I'm eating, especially if it's Waffle House or something. Um, and but so that would corroborate his claim that yes, I wasn't in this area. I was doing something else. I was meeting friends. I was seeing someone else, and and that's how come I had to turn off my device. Um, you know, what will his claims of innocence be, and for his alibi? I have no idea. But if he had one, we wouldn't be here currently. Like I said, they would have thrown it up there early on and said, "Hey, he doesn't need to be in jail. He didn't do this crime. He was somewhere else. This is who he was with, who he was speaking with." And but you know, and will that come out and maybe later? Is that their strategy? I have no idea, but it is aggravating that we want this trial to go forward, but we also don't want the courts to mess up and possibly improperly overlook something that will allow appeal to come back and change the verdict of this case um, if he is found guilty of these crimes. And one of the weakest parts and one of the weakest things as far as alibis are out there is just a personal um, uh, of that can come in and say that I have personal knowledge. He was with me, or I saw him at such and such intersection, um, and um, and he couldn't do the crime because he was up in some other city, or we were having an encounter, and just like eyewitnesses can absolutely harm a case later on as the years go on, and the reliability of eyewitnesses can hurt you. They can hurt you also as far as uh, uh, if it's just a one-on-one and there's no supporting evidence from a witness that says he's innocent and this is why he's innocent. Because there are people out there that will make statements for whatever reason to try to keep people out of trouble. And but they have to have supporting evidence of it. So if someone just steps up and says, "Hey, I know him. I saw him at such and such location. He didn't commit it," um, and but it has to be enough, as you see here, that um, not only does it have to have the ability to strengthen your alibi, but someone who says they were with you on the day and time in question can be enough to create reasonable doubt in the eyes of a jury. But that person would have to have absolutely impeccable credentials and respect in a community of, yes, they're credible. There's no reason that we would doubt that what they're telling us is the truth. So you're not going to be able to go out and find some half crazed, someone that is unstable that will come in and said they'll testify to anything. And so we have to have some credibility. So even if it is an eyewitness that says, nope, I'm not really worried about that at this point. But as you see here, he dressed up extremely well. And as most defendants, a lot of times you can't. I've been in there when I arrested the offenders, and some of these offenders at the time of the arrest and their normal lifestyle, that once you get them dressed up and put at the defense table, they're hard to tell who's the attorney and who's the client. And that's going to be the case on this, because when the jury looks over there, of course, they'll be able to, they'll know who he is. But he will stand out that as far as that, he'll seem extremely professional, extremely nice, very attentive, and he'll be on his P's and Q's and absolutely not look like the monster that is capable of committing the crime that he's accused of. And you'll see that. I've seen it, that I've been sitting there and look over there and think that, yes, if you had to look at that and try to pick out from this room who the guilty party is, that the monster that could commit this crime is, might not be so easy to pick out of a courtroom of individuals. And that's going to be the case with this. But on the opposite side, that alibi has to overcome all this information that law enforcement brought together for this prosecution. That DNA, I mean, that's huge. That is on a sheath of a weapon that it was capable to create these corresponding injuries of a knife that would fit within the sheath. And I expect that we're going to hear a lot of the medical examiner and the pathologist's descriptions of the injuries that, yes, a knife that would fit within this sheath is capable of committing every one of these injuries. And if you don't have that ability, then we have to say that we may have another weapon, say that there are certain injuries that this knife wouldn't be capable of committing. Uh, but we don't know of that yet. We don't know what the the full extent of the injuries, and but we will hear that certain injuries would be um, able to be committed with such a weapon that fit within the sheath. The camera evidence, absolutely huge, that he was driving, that Kohberger owned the vehicle. They tracked it. They have him in traffic stops in that vehicle. There's video. There's multiple cameras. They did a video canvas. And so that's where all this data is coming from. And then you have your phone data, the cellular footprint, the pings pre-crime, when it went off and he went dark, ping post-crime, when it came back on, and once again we're able to track his movements. They were able to be mapped, and it's critical that that limited time that he deactivated his phone pre and post, and then we have that even more focused time of that law enforcement is almost positive of the limited time that he was there at the residence. And then we get to the vehicle, and what have they found in that vehicle? If they found any evidence from within that residence in that vehicle, it doesn't matter. I don't care what kind of alibi. I don't think that there's any alibi that would override that, or even possibility of, because you cannot be. And the reason I say that is that you cannot be at two places at one time. So there's no way an alibi would exist. If they get DNA evidence from inside his vehicle that came from inside that house from those victims or in his vehicle, there's no way he could have been anywhere else, and there's no alibi to find. There's no argument about that. And I'm hoping for the fact that, we have that vehicle on the camera, had to look out for it. He had possession of it pre-crime, had possession of it post-crime, and his device showed that he was mobile. Um, and I'm sure there's video of him in the area of where his residence was, and it corresponds and is supported by digital evidence. And that's what's brought Kohberger to the point of being charged with the burglary and the 4 counts of homicide. But with that being said, do we have any questions?
Let's see here. We do.
All right.
Okay. We got a couple of blue lights first, and it's Jennifer Rochelle.
Hello, Jennifer. Appreciate all our mods, and especially Jennifer for all that she does. Absolutely couldn't do this without her.
All right, and we have another one for Brenda Birkenback, donated a membership.
Thank you, Brenda. Appreciate your support. It means a lot to us.
Yep. And let's see here. I think that's all the blues right now.
Okay.
Okay. And from Sandra, why would he need an alibi?
Well, alibi is just one of the most, if he has a strong enough alibi, some of the evidence, if the prosecution has a weak case and they do not have, if you just looked at the circumstances of all the information that in the probable cause affidavit, that it's probably it was enough to affect an arrest, and it's more than likely enough to get a conviction. But if he has an alibi and he's somewhere else and it's impossible for him to be in two locations at one time, that's the whole thing. An alibi, if they have one, and we wouldn't be here. Like I said, I do not believe that if day one, when Kohberger says, "Oh, I turned off my phone because I'm having let's just create something an affair with so and so, and I didn't want my phone to be um, linking up with so and so's household," um, and but now we have to have that person to verify that relationship, and you would have to have supporting evidence. But the alibi would be critical if they could establish one that, no, I wasn't at the crime scene. This is where I was at, had nothing to do with that. And this is why I turned off my phone. And if he can establish that alibi and he can get it to a jury and get at least one member of that jury to say, "Ah, yes, the alibi doesn't have to convince 12 people. It's just got to convince one person." And that's how come he wants the illusion, or there may even actually be an alibi. I don't know, but if there is, that's why he wants that alibi to be brought up.
All right. And Sandra's continuing with, does having an alibi always get you off?
No.
That was quick.
Yeah. How many of y'all would believe that if Mrs. Steve was my alibi for a certain time window, and look around your house, that yes, grandma may be the absolutely greatest person in the world, but would grandma give you an alibi for certain time frames, and how much weight would that carry? And so certain times alibis are absolutely tossed out the window for the fact that there's ulterior motives of why someone would say that he didn't commit it. He's my grandson. He wouldn't do that. He was with me. And so um, alibis don't always work out. Now, if you have certain alibis, such as videos and supporting evidence, that's a different type.
Okay. They're coming in.
All right.
All right. And Molly, I wonder if you're sitting at home and your smart TV is on. You're watching YouTube under your account and the channels change. New videos start. I wonder if that can tell that you were at home.
If there's searches or types of searches going on that can only occur at the residence, yeah, I would imagine that could be an alibi. But I don't know the extent of, and there's some things, and there's certain apps out there that can do certain things on remote devices. And, but that would be for the experts to come in and argue those that, yes, this is how you could create a false alibi through those measures. And because for anything that can go one way, um, there's people out there that can figure out how to or attempt to beat the system. And but that is a great point and great question. But I don't know the answer to your exact question. But that is, I think I had discussed that with someone on another case at some point of how remote access may allow you to do certain things. It may have been on, actually, I think it was on the Kagan Klein part of the, because his device was doing searches at a residence while there was rumors of him being somewhere else, and who would be conducting. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Getting updates. We're getting up on that case actually as we're speaking. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, let's go see here. Hold on. Let's see here. Make sure I got everything. Okay. And there goes Molly. And then we got blue light from Miss
Miranda,
Lee.
hope you get to feeling better soon.
And Miss Joanne
Jackson.
Jackson.
Super sticker. Appreciate your support. We're about to go on a trip. Not let's see, what, about 3 weeks? Yeah, probably 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Yeah,
3 or 4.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Yeah.
All right. And Josh, a device no one knows about. I'd be in a hurry to offer up that device if it alibied me. Why do I have a secret device?
Well, well, that's right. If I told Mrs. Steve I have a secret device, I would be.
Got no
Yeah,
secret device.
I know it. Yeah, it's impossible. She pays all the bills. Uh, but
Got him.
yeah, and you're exactly right that if he had such a device and had such an alibi, he would absolutely offer it up, and we wouldn't be in this position. For the fact that what individual having such information would want all the focus on him as an individual and not on the that we have an offender. Y'all have looked at the wrong person. You're chasing me. I can prove I'm innocent. This is how I prove that my innocence. And you need to get out there and find the appropriate and the right offender. And I haven't seen that or heard of that. So, you're exactly right. If he had such a device, he would offer it up.
I'm gonna go find me one. Why not?
So you go searching for a device.
I just go find me one. All right, let's see here. And Josh, anyone offering an alibi at this point would be heavily cross-examined, right?
Yes, absolutely. And regardless, at any point, it doesn't matter. I mean, evidence could come in here. The defense may have someone, anywhere during this trial that may come forward with new evidence that's exculpatory. And anytime that comes up, it'd be brought to the attention of the court. And but yes, the prosecution will not give up 1 inch of anything. That if the defense, no matter what the defense brings to the table, they are absolutely going to be heavily crossed by the prosecution for the fact that the prosecution believes they have their man.
All right. And JDR, Steve, I have heard women are writing him love letters or also sending him their hard-earned money.
And that's amazing. I don't know.
No,
No,
it's the eyes.
It's the eyes. You wouldn't send him.
Mm-mm.
You wouldn't. Okay.
I wouldn't send him a dime, maybe a penny.
So Mrs. Steve evidently likes my eyes, but
That's Molly. She knows.
Molly knows it's the eyes.
It's the eyes.
But I don't know. Yeah. But for whatever reason, that his appeal of whatever it is, charisma, whatever of these women that wish to do that course of action, that the prosecution would be prepared to offset anything if any of those individuals stepped up.
Okay, and Jennifer Rochelle, evil eyes. See there? I'm not the only one.
Man,
Thanks, girls. Let's see here. And let's see here. The Winch at True Crime Web. Is there anyone that can say he was known to go to parties in that house?
There's been rumors of that. I don't know if that's going to come up, and that may be a possibility that will arise. And that's what I'm saying is that but the prosecution, that even if he had been in that house prior to, it's going to have what happened the night of, because in the world of homicide investigations, it's a known fact that a vast majority of all victims at some point, and often on several times, have crossed the paths of the one that committed the homicide. So he could have absolutely been in that house multiple times at multiple parties. Has nothing to do with what happened during that narrow window of opportunity. Now, they may say that, well, some of the DNA could be explained during that, or footprints. It depends on what those footprints were transferred by. If it's from the actual night of and passive blood pools, then it doesn't matter. But if it's from just dirt, mud, or something, that may be a different type of shoe impression or transfer. But uh, but the mere presence of being in there weeks or months before um, won't carry enough weight to overturn, I think, all this evidence.
And unearthed secrets. Marty, have you ever driven someone's route to see if they had time to commit a crime or not?
Um, I've calculated it, and and I've actually sat in courts where um, they've in the homicides that they would put a camera um, in a vehicle and run that exact path in the manner that the victim of the homicide was uh, contained, and drive that same path during that time limit and let that video play out. That this is how they travel from point A to point B, and this is where the homicide occurred. I've been in court where those investigators had done things like that, but I've been in areas and calculated, um, but never. I don't think I've ever actually driven the route personally.
Okay. And this one I'm saying because it's priceless. And this is from Molly at True Crime Web. I don't know. Mrs. Steve might be the DA's best witness if you messed up her kitchen with your crimes and ruined her washer and her car.
Well,
Emphasis.
yes,
And
I would be able to say that she's had some type of vindication against me. She's vindictive and trying to get back at me for doing what you just accused me of.
yeah. All right, Blue.
Dark Arts, good to see you. $20 super sticker. Appreciate your support. Absolutely.
Good to see you. Been a minute.
It has.
All right. And let's go back up here. Where am I at? Okay. And from Sandra, did they find the knife?
Not that I know of yet. Have they? That would be in discovery. I hopefully they have, and hopefully they will. But I have no information or haven't heard that rumor.
Okay. Another.
Kamala.
Blue light special.
Kamala Norris, $10. Blue light special. I'm having breakfast for supper tonight. Thank you for your fun. Thank you. Appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
We like breakfast for supper.
We sure do. All right. And Single Mama 4, who qualifies as an alibi?
It can be anyone. It could be any of those that we spoke of. It can be a store receipt. It could be video footage. It could be the social media evidence. It could be an eyewitness. And it doesn't always have to be an individual, because we live in a world of digital uh, data out there. And so, if he's walking through a park and it has security cameras and they can establish that's him, and he's just out there taking a midnight stroll in an area. And so it doesn't have to be an individual. It can be any of these platforms that could be presented in court to be an alibi.
And from Lisa, I thought it was drug related from the start. Steve, what's your opinion on war on drugs?
The war on drugs is an absolute failure. If always has been, always will be trying to do that. The government has tried to always have war and prohibitions and on alcohol and others, and it failed on alcohol, and it will fail on drugs. But the as far as this case being related to drugs, I think that is doesn't mean that there weren't drugs being used by both the victims and possibly by the suspect, but that's not justification for anything that occurred. Recreational use of drugs does not mean that someone should pass or die in this violent manner. Not saying that they had anything to do with it, because that was, in my opinion, it has no impact on this case. But if there, and it has no impact as far as his behavior. Now, of course, he may claim at some point that he was under the influence, but he's going to have to convince a jury of that.
And the winch, was there blood on that knife sheath? If they found it in a room where there was a body, seems like there would be more than his DNA on it.
And that is a great point and great question, and there may be, but they only released in the probable cause affidavit a unknown profile, because you'll often see that when you're in a room where there's basically blood spatter, blood everywhere, you're looking for the unknown profiles that is inconsistent with the person's, that we know their DNA profile. This is the victim's DNA profile. This is the other victim's DNA profile. And those DNA profiles can show you, when you do your blood pattern analysis, of which victim was first, which one was second, due to cross contamination and transfer of certain types of evidence. And so there may be other DNA profiles on that sheath, but the one that was unidentified, that didn't belong to the victims, belonged to Kohberger.
And from Sandra, I heard this target was Kaylee. Is that true?
We'll know now. It's been rumored that, and it's been spoke about numerous times that she was the target, but we won't know that answer absolutely until court.
And from Mist, wonder why BK didn't choose the forgotten from the streets as his victims if he was so studied in SKs.
Well, and that's the thing, is that regardless of what we try to make and put a narrative of why these offenders commit certain crimes against certain victims, that they do this. And it's in their own mind, in their own world of them trying to do whatever feeds their fantasy, their profile, fulfills their narrative of what they're and why they want to do it. Because they want to commit this crime, and they want to commit this crime to whatever target. And actually, we on Saturday, we're going to be hopefully Dr. Susan will be with us and be able to speak on this very topic. We right now are trying to get the scheduling set down for Saturday so that we can talk about this exact issue that you bring up. Thank you for that question. That worked out great.
Okay. And blue light for Mike D.
Appreciate it. If no tainted prints leading out of the house, why not? How is this possible? Your opinion? Well, we have certain shoe prints that corroborated the what the surviving witness that says that described an individual with heavy eyebrows, and that law enforcement looked at that and said that, yes, we have footprints leading from that location, transfers that support her description of what occurred at a certain time. And so we have that. But now, if you're talking about fingerprints and things, and the gloves, and how that could affect and not allow such things as fingerprints. And there's a lot of ways that these criminals attempt to cover and their presence. And it appears that he very possibly had on those gloves and was able to not leave any type of fingerprints, but he left a DNA profile. And that's what matters.
Okay. And from Don Spain, Mr. Steve, what is your opinion of all these YouTubers claiming Kohberger couldn't do this alone in the time frame? I think he absolutely could.
Yes, I agree. I think he could and did. And uh, you know that he was a lone individual in the residence. I'm still a little bit unsure of in the vehicle, but I'm in the residence. Absolutely, I believe that he committed it solely by himself, because there was only one individual seen within the residence, and um, who looked outside her door for on more than one occasion. And during those occasions, she only saw one individual that she described. So I think that he was the only one in the house. And the only reason I ever say that there could be um, um, possibly someone else in the vehicle is due to law enforcement statement at one point of that they mentioned that there could be more than one person in that vehicle. Now, what was their reason to base that on? And will they retract that, or will they be able to explain why that statement was made? And we'll just have to see.
Okay. And Josh, was the DNA shown to be related to BK's father, or was it actually a specific match to BK's father? What do you make of that?
My understanding was from reading the affidavit is that it was through BK's father that this individual would have been the father of the offender, and that they had enough of a profile to say that, well, whatever that mathematical certainty was, whatever that number was, that that they had the father's DNA, and he would be the father of the offender. And so I take it as that.
Okay. And JDR, Steve, I was watching a video of the wife of a suspect who said her husband was in bed with her all night and could not have offed the neighbor, as the LE said. Do jurors put much weight on spouse alibi?
No, I don't think so. You know, if there's, like I said, if you have reason and there is a relationship there, then absolutely. And that's probably one of the weakest alibis that you can have is from a spouse, because there's so much pressure and there's so much involvement there that a jury wouldn't believe. Now, Mr. Steve
Nah,
would never take up for me. If I went out and did anything wrong,
he gone.
she'll throw me under the bus.
He gone. Let's see here. Let me make sure I got everything. I think I did. Okay. All right. And Kamala, I think BK stalked one or all the girls on Instagram. What are your thoughts on this, Mr. Steve?
I absolutely agree with you. I believe that is the case. I think that they will be able to present some of that information in court. I think that will be part of the case. May be absolutely wrong, but I do. He had to find them some way, and I think there's been some evidence shown of some communications or some type of links through those social media platforms.
Okay. And from Molly at True Crime Web, is Ellie allowed to take your DNA, blood, cheek swab when they arrest you, even if you don't want them to, ask for a lawyer, etc.?
Um, they can all they can ask, and if you give consent, it's done. But if you refuse, it's not hard. That if now they have certain things that once you're found guilty of certain crimes, your DNA profile will be taken. But that's through the courts also. But it's not that hard to get a search warrant for DNA. It's just you just got to have the probable cause and justify, and then you're going to get that DNA, regardless of what the individual's opinion of the court order is. The DNA will be collected.
All right, let's see
I
here.
think on Ted Bundy, when they did the the teeth impressions of that, um, um, that was one of the moments that he got extremely angry once he realized where he was at and what was about to happen, because he knew that he had bit some of those victims and he knew what that meant. And, but there's nothing you can do about it.
All right. And from Chevy Metal, there's lots of people coming out saying they knew something bad happened around 8:30 to 10 a.m. Why take so long to call 911?
And that is, that is curious that, after the crime was committed, were they suspecting certain things? Um, did someone see something and was fearful to go inside? I don't know. I have no idea. But all that will come out in the wash, and if that is true, and we'll just have to see. And who started those rumors will be interesting. And will they be able to track that if this is the case? And who started it and how would they know? Because if those rumors started, or there's posts that are created saying that, hey, you need to go look at this, who created that, who started that? And if they have digital evidence tracking back to such an individual, such as, did Kohberger do it himself? Is he the one that started those rumors? And they'll look at that. I have no idea if he did or not, but I have seen where that has been brought up in question.
All right. And Call Me Kitty. Has there been any speculation on the order of events once he was in the house?
Thousands. Even I was surprised by the order that law enforcement came in and established, or in their opinion, of how that the order of victims, because I always thought that he would have started on the second level and worked his way up, um, doing the law enforcement point of entry type of maneuvers and training that we would have done securing as we went through a residence. But if he started upstairs, there's a reason he was targeting whoever was upstairs. That no matter what happened, he was going to get his targets. And there's only two people up there, so one of the two is a target. And which I found that extremely surprising.
Okay, and let's see here. And Deb is asking if you know the DoorDash driver.
No, and there's been a lot of speculation now about who that is and who called in the order and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm sure there's someone out there knows, but I don't know personally.
Let's see here. That is it.
All right. Well, guys, we absolutely appreciate everyone who's been here tonight. We appreciate all the support, the donation. Like I said, we're getting ready to go up on another case in just a few weeks. And all y'all's support, from the views to the thumbs up to the likes to the subs to those who donate funds and who support not only through our YouTube channel, but through the foundation, True Crime Web Foundation, which is a nonprofit. We absolutely appreciate it. We couldn't do it without you. And we want to thank our mods and everyone. And if you like this video, share it, and we would appreciate it. And y'all stay safe out there, and we'll see y'all soon.
Thanks for a great show. Love y'all.
Bye-bye.